Google surprised us all by advancing their presentation of their next Google Pixel 9. Their calendar is for October, but this time it's for August 13. They are preparing to unveil the Pixel 9, Pixel 9 Pro, Pixel 9 Pro XL, and Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Now that it's gone, let's speak about the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold. So let's discuss the phone's design. We've taken a lot of photos of this phone since January. In January, it was known as the Pixel Fold 2. But we just learned its proper name, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. In addition to all the leaks about this phone and the photographs we've seen, Google thought, well, if I sent official images of it. That is why we have actual Google photos, and we are sure there is a design for them. The rear shows a picture block that is longer than the final pixels. We chose a square style with perfectly rounded corners that harmonized with the phone. It's the same premise as the Pixel 9 picture block, but considerably more compact. The picture block shows two bubbles that will hold a camera sensor. Therefore, we should have 3 camera sensors in this area. When you glance at the front of the phone, the screen is not entirely rounded and follows the phone's curves, but it has large borders. That is, of course, related to the phone in hand. Aside from that, upstairs, you'll be able to discover a fish and place a front camera in there because, yeah, you have a front camera on this side, and you can even unlock the phone. She will sleep on the top right corner of the phone, which has a black border all around the screen. We know that there will be 2 colors, obsidian and porcelain. The size of the displays on this phone has changed. Our height-width ratio is entirely different from its predecessor. The new phone has an 8-inch internal screen with a resolution of 2152 by 2076 pixels and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. In addition, we will experience 1600 nights of maximum humidity when we previously had a 7.6-inch screen. If you understand, the phone's format has changed, and so has the front screen. We'll be able to discover a 6.24-inch screen with a 1080 by 2424 resolution, a 120 Hz cooling rate, and a maximum brightness of 1800 nits. Well, for this year, at the power level, we'll be on the Google Tensor G4, and as you know, this processor is a little behind the 8G N3, as seen by benchmarks on the projected Pixel 9. But we might ask ourselves whether we truly need greater power. It is preferable to synchronize the phone's software, and above all, offer new AI capabilities since Google will indeed deliver new AI features, which will be spectacular. Of course, we will wait for Google's conference to disclose these new capabilities since Google is still the pioneer of guillemettes on phones with actual working AI. I think Google Gemini will most likely replace Google Assistant in the future Pixel 9. More than that, this phone will be equipped with 12 gigs of RAM, but we should mention one very noteworthy feature, the picture section. The primary sensor will be 48 megapixels with an extra wide angle of 10.5 megapixels, a 10.8 megapixels telescope, and 2 10 megapixels front cameras. Moving on, Android Authority has released an intriguing piece regarding Google's new Tensor G4 CPU, which we anticipate seeing on the forthcoming Pixel phones. So if you want to know more, kindly let me explain. Okay, let's go into the fresh information we have regarding the Google Tensor G4 Generation 4, which is the CPU for the Pixel 9. So, what is a Google Tensor? In this context, Google Tensor refers to a set of ARM64-based system-on-chip processors developed by Google in partnership with Samsung for the Pixel smartphone, E64-bit ARM chips created by Google with Samsung's assistance. Of course, Samsung has its own foundry and extensive expertise in developing chips. The first-generation Tensor processor debuted in the Pixel 6 smartphone in 2021. It has 2 Cortex-X1 CPU cores, which were quite unusual then, 2 Cortex-A76 cores, and 4 Cortex-A55 cores. The Mali G78MP20 was the GPU. The most notable feature of Google Tensor is the inclusion of its own unique TPU, the Tensor Processing Unit, which is an NPU, a neural processing unit, allowing Google to do various machine learning tasks on the device. There is no need to send into the clouds. Then Google continued with the same concept in the Tensor G2, released the following year and identical to the Tensor G1, except that the Cortex-A76 cores were updated to Cortex-A78. The GPU and TPU were then upgraded, and the Tensor Processing Unit entered its second generation. So a modest update from the G1 to the G2 seems identical regarding hardware and software. The Tensor G3 was a significant departure from the prior two designs. This was released in 2023 for the Pixel 8 family of processors. It was the first ARM-v9 processor from Google. It included 9 cores, which was unique at the time. It still seems weird. So there was one Cortex X3, followed by 9 cores from 4 Cortex, a 715, and 4 Cortex, a 510. So you get 1 plus 4 plus 4, which is 9. Next comes the ARM Mali G715 MC7. Of course, it retained its TPU, a unique IP address from Google. Now, onto the third generation Rio. Currently, we go on to the G4 where we are. This 4th generation Tensor processor is now expected to be released this month, in August 2024, with the debut of the Pixel 9 series. It is a bit earlier than Google would have done in prior years. So we expected it to arrive later in the year, maybe in October. So there are no longer 4 of them, so back to 3. An octa-core setup, 4 Cortex F520s, and the same Mali G715 GPU. However, it seems that the clock speed will be somewhat greater. Then came the same TPU, the Rio TPU. So there's not much of a change here. The CPUs have only been slightly upgraded. The GPU and TPU remain the same. So it's a fairly identical chip with a few improvements. Current testing shows that it will provide an 11% increase in single-core score and a 3% improvement in multi-core score compared to the Tensor G3, with the Tensor G3 producing the greatest results. Why only 3% for multi-core? We moved from 9 to 8 cores. So increasing the number of CPU cores results in a single-threaded increase for each. However, this is insufficient to compensate for the loss of a whole core. So it's marginally quicker on multi-core, but 11% better on a single core. The second significant news is that there will be a different modem, the Samsung modem. As I previously said, this was created in close coordination with Samsung. Now it's the Exynos 5400 or 5400 modem, and the primary difference is that it consumes less power than the previous model, the 5300. One notable aspect is that the Tensor G4 is not the processor Google sought. It aimed for a different form of chip that did not depend as much on Samsung or its relationship with Samsung. It was something it was doing more independently. Now, the specifics of that chip are unknown, but it would be quite different from the pattern and template we've seen with the G1, G2, G3, and so on. Unfortunately, Google did not meet its internal deadlines. These chip designs now take 2 to 3 years. So this choice was taken in 2023, most likely because they realized they wouldn't be ready in time for all of the manufacturing that needed to take place, that all of the devices needed to be constructed, and that they needed to be ready to ship out. So that's a lengthy procedure. You must plan. They missed their internal deadline. They won't make it. So their next best option was to design another microprocessor in partnership with Samsung, essentially upgrading the G3 into the G4 and tweaking it here and there. They accomplished this with the G1 and G2. This is now true for both the G3 and G4. If Google sticks to its plans, another chip, maybe the G5, will be released significantly different from this one. At present, the G4 is a minor upgrade over the G3. That is an artificial lock-in choice made by Google since no unique hardware in the G4 was available in the G3. The GPU and TPU are identical, with the CPU running somewhat quicker. You can't shut off a feature due to the G4, so if they exist, they are completely manufactured locks. However, we must mention that the Pixel 9 will have at least 12 GB of storage and up to 16 GB for larger variants. This will be critical for any huge language models, such as the Gemini Nano or any other software that Google wants to run that needs more memory. Previous Pixel phones did not always have as much RAM, which is a limitation for running these huge language models. So it might be one solid reason to believe this function only works on the Pixel 9 due to a RAM problem. Okay, that's it. Does it matter? I read quite a lot of the comments. People claim that procedures are so rapid today. It does not matter. It works well enough. It will, do its intended function. Do you believe that the Google Tensor and TPU are important to the smartphone experience in photography and other machine learning applications? So stay tuned for more update on the Google Pixel 9 series, and I will see you in the next one.